Okay, welcome to our Erev Shabbat class, but really pre-Erev Pesach class, and therefore a Pesach-oriented subject. And the question is there an unrealistic or unfair obligation asked of us for Leil Seder on the holy Pesach night? And the answer is seemingly yes. When you talk about what we were obliged to do, what's incumbent upon us, the word that indicates obligation in Hebrew and halakha is hayav, right? That's a word of mandate, instruction, obligation. And in the Haggadah, it says the word hayav twice. It says the word chovato once. It says if you don't say Pesach Masa Umaro, you don't fulfill chovato, your obligation, which we understand we will not focus on. And then twice it says the word hayav, but the second is really attached to the first. And that's the statement that we'll focus on and we'll ask. The following is stated at the end, toward the end of our Haggadah. It's a Mishnah, quote of a Mishnah directly from Masechet Pesachim. And that is, Bechol dor vador, hayav adam lirot et asmo, or leharot et asmo, ki'ilu hu yasam Misrayim. That every generation, and when we say every generation, we specifically point to the timeliness of an annual timeliness of every generation, which is Leil Seder night, that a person must look at himself as if he left Egypt. Well, normally we speak of obligations. An obligation, or to fulfill it, an expectation of us has to be something that we can actively fulfill. It should be tangible. It should be doable. It should be something that's within our grasp, within our reach. I can eat this, fine. The Torah says prescribed eating, I'll eat it. The Torah prescribes speaking, I'll say it. Even sometimes the Torah prescribes thinking. You have to believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the singular God, the creator of the world, I'll believe it. But if you speak of an event of the past, commemorating a historical event, I'll do that also, I'll commemorate. But if you ask me to do something that's intangible, that's out of body, namely, to look at myself as if I left Egypt, and to tell me that if I can't, that I don't do that, I haven't fulfilled my task. I haven't absolved myself of my obligation. I haven't done what's expected of me because I wasn't able to imagine myself and transplant myself in a scene of over 3 millennia, over 3,300 years ago. I failed? Sounds unfair. I don't know what it looked like. I can, of course, since we're kids, we're imagining this. I can try to imagine. I can't feel, I can't experience that sensation of leaving Misrayim. Obviously, I can't picture the supernatural wonders. I can only really imagine. So how can a person be obliged to look at himself as if he left Egypt? Seems unfair, seems unrealistic. We can certainly do our best, and we try. But to use that word obligated, and in order to answer the question, we really have to perhaps understand what the obligation is and what that means, that a person must look at himself as if he left, and the word is ki'ilu, as if he left Misrayim. Maybe there's something more tangible and realistic to it. And in order to answer that, we have to make another statement that of my own, not from prescribed by Hachamim, but necessary to answer the question. And that is that Yisiat Misrayim, the exodus of Egypt, as wondrous as it was, as supernatural, as incredible as it was not a complete accomplishment, meaning it was a means to an end, meaning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu extracted us from that place of slavery. He extrapolated us from suffering. He redeemed us. He saved us from the jaws of the evil Egyptian empire. But that was only a means to get somewhere else. Now, your first inclination will be to say you're correct, to get to Torah HaKadoshah, to be able to chosen to then observe God and enter into his pact. And that's true. And yet we can still say something else. The Torah, the revelation at Mount Sinai, Matan Torah, Matan Sinai, is also not a complete accomplishment and only a means to an end. All right, so then go further. What am I getting at? Afterwards, we'll be able to build a Mishkan, experience Shekhinah, foster the highest relationship with God. We'll also make another statement. That's only a means to an end, it's not a complete accomplishment. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Get to Israel. Final destination, get to Israel. We're saved, we're a chosen people, we have a Torah, we have a Beit HaMikdash, we're in the chosen land, and I'm still going to make that statement, and that's not a complete accomplishment. There's something lacking. It's a means to an end, and we didn't get to where we need to go. And the reason that we say that is because we understand that the objective of human existence, and because humanity, generally speaking, failed their task, the objective of the existence of the Jewish nation is complete recognition of the existence of the single, primal, all-powerful, all-knowing creator of the universe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Melech Melekei HaMelachim. That is it. In order for that to happen, we are the conduit to the rest of the world to enlighten them. And we know that that does not completely occur until the final days of redemption. We call them Yemot HaMashiach. They're followed by a wondrous time called Tahayat HaMetim, etc. So that is the final step, destination, not just for the Jewish nation, but by extension, for all of mankind, or whoever will merit to be there at those glorious times that we look forward in the future. And so we can very simply say that we haven't gotten there yet. And so let's go back for a second and let's try to picture the leaving of Exodus from Egypt, the splitting of the sea. And we began to march. We began to march and we embarked on a journey. And that journey we hoped would end soon. Enter Israel, Moshe Rabbeinu, maybe he's the Mashiach. It didn't work that way. And we had these centuries of the Shofetim. We learn about them in the books of the Nevi'im HaRishonim, where we had our pitfalls and we had our successes. We went up and down for 400 years, still nothing. We know of no final redemption and messianic time. Right then, the days and generations of David and Shlomo HaMelech, the apex of our existence as a nation, we seemed like we were just about there, and then we descended. Kingdom splits, Yehuda, Yisrael. Those next 400 years, when we had the existence of the Beit HaMikdash, had their great successes, but by and large were a failure. 10 tribes lost, right? Kingdom of Yehuda. We had some great times. We had our close calls. Hachamim tell us, after all, every generation could build a Beit HaMikdash. There's a potential Mashiach. We had great men. Again, we were almost there a couple of times, maybe, possibly. In the end, it all came tumbling down with the terrible tragedy of the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. And we took many steps backwards. And we regressed in this march that we were on. We had embarked on a journey. We left Misrayim. We got to the promised land, but we needed to get to the final destination. And not only was it stalled, but seemingly almost lost, God forbid. Seemingly, the march almost came to a sudden halt and end. And that journey to our final destination seemed to be over. And we built another Beit HaMikdash. And then here we are. Here we are in thousands of years later. And since our march has been stifled, since our journey has been almost halted, but continues, it has continued. Miraculously, we're somehow, our feet are still moving, we're still marching. The march has been incredibly uphill, excruciatingly difficult here in this exile, and yet we exist. And yet we continue, and for thousands of years, without a sovereign nation, without protection, without an army, without security, without borders and boundaries, without a government, without an economy, et cetera, subject to the other nations, oppressed, and enduring all of the tragedies that we did in all those centuries. But somehow our feet kept moving. And Am Yisrael, as a unit, never took our eye off the goal and the final target. And so that we are 24 to 2,600 years removed from the original destruction, almost 2,000 years removed from the last destruction. We are over 3,300 years removed from the original Exodus from Misrayim, and yet we find ourselves still in perpetual motion. As difficult as it is, we're still on that journey. We're still marching towards our goal. And you can say that that march has been participated by every member just about of Am Yisrael, men, women, and children, for all these thousands of years. And you can fairly say and give credit to every generation, to every community, in every century, in every continent and country that has partook in the commitment to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the never-ending observance of Torah and Mitzvot, have all taken part and done their part on this journey, and to continue this march, not to give up, and to focus on the final destination. And so that a woman tonight lights candles, she's participating. A person woke up this morning, he went to Knis and he prayed in the minyan. He is part of the critical components of that march. Every single man who learned Torah, every single community who's continued with their traditions, every single person who has done acts of chesed, who wear tefillin, et cetera, every synagogue that has been built and existed, every community that continues to function and uphold their traditions and customs, every chesed in the organization, we can, with all confidence, repeat that line and say, B'chol dor vador. Every generation, hayav adam, a person must li'otet asmo, understand and look at himself ki'ilu, as if he came out of Misrayim, because all he is doing is continuing a march that never ended, a journey that was embarked upon, that we simply, as it passes by our life, we step aboard and we continue to march. And therefore, it isn't some type of historical reflection where we try to imagine how it looked, what it would have been like if I was there. No, you are there. You are currently participating on the very march that our forefathers began out of that hellhole of Egypt and into the desert. Our legs have never stopped moving. We've simply joined that march through tragedy and through great times. God forbid we should never see it again ever in our existence, but that historical tragedy called the Holocaust, we marched towards gas chambers. That marching was still part of the participation of that journey. And in modern times, when our soldiers march in Eretz Yisrael, they also participate on that march. And therefore, hayah, obligated, simply means consciousness. Can you be conscious of the fact that something began, a journey was embarked upon thousands of years ago, and that journey was and still is a means to an end, and that it's still ongoing, and that we have the zichud of perpetuating that march? And can you understand the Yetziat Misrayim, that great miraculous time of Exodus, was the beginning of a journey that hasn't ended and that we are required to help bring it to its final fate and destination. Hayab, you're obligated on Leil Pesach, when we identify ourselves as a nation, to understand that, to engage in it, and to continue to participate in it. Yes, reflect on how it started, speak about it as best we can, use the sources and the commentaries, but just know that that's where it all began, and that it never stopped, and that we are still on the way out of Misrayim, trying to reach our final destination. And it pays to mention, as we wind down this point, that the other way of reading the word is not lirot et asmo, it's another version of the sentence, and this is the way the Rambam has it in his Haggadah, is leharot et asmo, means to show himself. It means to demonstrate. It means that a person not only has to have a mental, intellectual reflection and a context and a perspective of his life and where it fits in to the larger spectrum of things, but he also has to physically and actively demonstrate that he's coming out of Misrayim. It means he has to be part of the team. It means he has to do whatever it takes to bring us to our final destination. It means that we're not marching blindly. It means that we're not just following, tagging along on a journey. It means we're taking responsibility and we're accountable to help get this nation to its final, to the end of the march. And therefore, laharot et asmo, with whatever we can do to fix what needs to be fixed in this nation, and to continue the commitment until we finally make it there, to those incredible messianic times that we look forward to. B'Nisan nich'alu u'b'Nisan atidim lehigael. We were redeemed around this time, at this time, coming weeks, coming week, coming days. And we will be finally redeemed at this time as well. But we're always in a state of redemption. We have to be conscious of that and just know that Am Yisrael was, is, and will be on a march towards the final time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu anticipates, times of Geulah Shelema, Melech HaMashiach, Ben Rabbi Amenu. Amen.